Yes, I hope everything is fine. Good morning for the people who is in United States, and also good afternoon to the people who are located in Europe and Turkey. So, welcome everyone. So, I'm Milas Levent. I'm the director of my growth MaestroHub, and I will be moderating today's session. So, we are going to have a great conversation with two kind and expert people, Mr. Gilad Langer from Tulip and also Mr. Yasir Tuncer from MaestroHub. So, Dr. Gilad Langer is an accomplished business leader with over 28 years of experience in digital transformation, manufacturing, IT, engineering services, delivery, and technical operations. He has deep domain expertise in digital technologies and manufacturing business systems. He has an accomplished track record of digital transformation to drive high levels of operational performance in the pharma, biotech, and the med device industries. So he has also served as trusted advisor and business consultant in the areas of technology directions, industrial strategy, and software implementations. His focus and passion is Pharma 4.0 and digital technologies. Welcome again, Mr. Gilad.
Okay, good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And also Yasir Tuncer, here he is with us. So he is a manufacturing technology executive and digital transformation leader with extensive experience in digital and industrial data ops and unified namespace, Industry 4.0, and operational excellence. As the CEO of MaestroHub, he helps manufacturers to build data foundations required for modern connected operations by bridging the gap between the OT, the operational technologies, and the IT systems. And throughout his career, he has led the digital transformation programs, conducted more than 153 assessments, and delivered a large-scale operational improvement initiatives across the multiple industries. So, combining with the deep expertise and manufacturing systems and industrial data architecture, Yasir is passionate about helping organizations turn the fragmented factory data into the government, contextualized, and actionable intelligence. Well, hello again, Mr. Tuncer.
Hello everyone, good morning, afternoon.
So, quick housekeeping before we begin. You can ask any questions anytime in the chat or Q&A box, and we will have dedicated time for those at the end of the session. And the session is going to be recorded, and we will send you the link afterwards. Okay, now let's start with the session. So, today we are going to talk about something that's becoming critical for regulated manufacturers: building trustworthy, future-proof operational architectures. So here's the reality. The operational and the regulatory complexity of modern manufacturing has reached to a point where fragmented architectures are becoming increasingly difficult to sustain. So we are dealing with growing validation burdens, disconnected systems, rising traceability expectations, and artificial intelligence initiatives that are exposing foundational data and architectural gaps. The question isn't just about the digitization anymore, but it's about building trustworthy operational architectures that can actually scale. And to explore this, we will have two perspectives in this room today. So Dr. Gilad Langer from Tulip brings the frontline operational execution perspective, how to build a human-centric workflows, operational agility, and also guided process that actually work on the shop floor. And Yasir Tuncer from MaestroHub brings the industrial architecture and governance perspective, how to create contextualized, government, and interoperable data architectures that can support the scalability and the compliance. Okay, we are going to have a discussion about next 30 minutes about that. And I'm going to start by asking, we are seeing increasing operational complexity in growing validation burdens. So at the fragmented operational data across the regulated manufacturers, from your perspectives, what's actually broken right now? What is the gap that's forcing the conversation?
Yeah, so a great question. So, and it's a topic that is discussed and debated across the industry in many different ways. And I'm going to try and consolidate this, right? So I think number one, we know that AI is coming. We know that digital is coming. I would say that a few years ago, or maybe even last year, there was still skepticism, or maybe there was not clarity about, is this a paradigm change or not? I think at this point, we are aware that digital is a paradigm change, AI is a paradigm change, and we need to do something about it. So that's a good thing. We know that we need to do something about it, but what to do? That's where the confusion is, right? So, we have a landscape of in the pharma world where there is some systems to some extent, but really a lot of paper, a lot of very manual paper, and then the confusion. And I'm going to share a slide here just to help visualize some of these things. But I think the main thing is this idea of a system encompassing everything. So it's a one size fit all. You put a digital system, let's say an MES or other types of system, and it solves all our problem. But the reality of our manufacturing floor, and the reason why many of these systems have not proliferated across the manufacturing, is that every operation is unique, one thing, and it's dynamic. And I bring those two perspectives. We all know how hard it is to adjust the way you do something in your specific line or your specific suite to how a system wants to do it. I'm talking about traditional monolithic systems. So that's where most of the work goes into. What do we do? How do we adapt? How do we change the process to fit? So the realization that actually every suite is unique, and it has to be. On top of that, it is dynamic, and the world is changing fast. And you all know the problems that occur. Well, we have a deviation. No, it's not exact. Or the materials were not exactly what we expected, and the cell density is higher than what we expected, and managing deviations and all that great stuff that comes with it. So the base assumption here is, rather than fight this uniqueness and this dynamic, which actually it hurts our business. Let's encompass this and say, okay, this is something we need to do. And the other thing that I want to emphasize is the realization. I'm hoping that the industry come to the realization that the monolithic approach at trying to solve this problem does not work. The monolithic approach is the old way of doing things. It is high risk. You're locked into predefined structures in the different systems that you have. It's a one-stop shop type of environment, like you have to buy everything from one vendor, and it's enormously hard for operators to use. It's very not friendly, and that goes against the notion of democratization. So with all of that, really we have to start thinking about, okay, if we have to agree, maybe accept that this is the world that we live in, and then try to do it in a very different way. And we'll cover that, I think, in a bit. But that was my response.
Yeah, definitely completely agree with Gilad on those topics. Moreover, as Gilad mentioned, Genie is out of the bottle. Like you won't be putting back the technology back into place. You need to somehow adapt, and resilience. In order to have a resilient operation, you need to have more flexibility and adaptation. Monolithic gives you those rigidity where you don't have the room to adapt your process, where those are really dynamic, happens in every second, different events. And currently, most of those events are not captured. This is one of the challenges that we see. There are a lot of systems that needs to record all of those events happening on different parts of the organization. On the other hand, composability brings how to interact all of those different parts of the business as a cohesive framework, how each of those actually have the butterfly effect and able to link those events into business outcomes so we can improve sustainability, productivity, and without compromising the governance or regulations that we need to operate in the boundaries of. That part comes from adaptation. Adaptation is the new currency for the business. If your business is not adapting, then you will definitely be losing in the long run.
Thank you very much for that problem statement. So we understand the problem, and let's talk about what's changing. From Tulip side, how the frontline execution is evolving, and for the Maestro side, what does the architecture need to look like to support that evolution?
Yeah, so obviously the answer is no, and we have to really start thinking about how we do things in a much different way, right? So, you know, the main thing that I want to emphasize here is that we introduced this notion of composability as a way to as a broad concept to what a new digital, and I don't want to say system or provider, but solution. Right? Composability is in a way a definition of what this digital world, a way that we can solve everything in this digital world. And I'm bringing this specific slide just to kind of emphasize the one of the main differences in composability. Composability is a broader concept. It consists of 5 pillars with some extra stuff, and we won't cover this. You can read about it, and I do talk and write and about it quite a lot. But we come from this world, as I said, this monolithic idea that you try to solve a system, you bring a system in that has predefined workflows and predefined perspective of how the world should look. Essentially, you have to model your world in their system. And if it doesn't fit, then you adapt it with some point solutions. And on the left side of this slide, just so you understand, and it's on purpose square. These are systems that squarely fit into something they're designed to solve a specific problem for all manufacturers in the world, for all systems in the world. We have to switch the view a bit because in the digital world, we're much more, it's easier to change, it's easier to adapt, it's easier to build solutions that are tailored to what you need. So we have to look at the world from a use case perspective and understand that these use cases also overlap. So the idea, and this is a much more organic way of looking, this is actually how we manufacture. So if you take a look at any operations, you can see that this is a much more truer version of explaining what this is. So this is a much more suiting model, or model that is suited for what we need. So we look at use cases from that perspective. We look at you know, solving a specific problem. A use case is an answer to actually a solution, a problem that we have in the overlap of it. For example, if we need production visibility, which is kind of a general term that in the life sciences we call the electronic batch / device history, or electronic batch history, and all the genealogy is, can I track my production, and can I have that? But that overlaps with many other types of use cases, and we need to understand that. So that's one perspective that is super important to understand. The other perspective that I think I want to emphasize in how we need to look at the world is this top-down versus bottoms-up notion. When we put in monolithic systems, we have to first start with a very lengthy process of understanding the gaps between what the functionality of the system is giving us and what we are, you know, what we have in production. We have to close those gaps. And that means two things. You have to change the way you operate sometimes, and you have to put workarounds or actually understand the things they're not going to cover. That lengthy process usually takes around 6 months. So you define requirements in the beginning, you would work through this lengthy process of trying to get it to fit your production. And then you go to another lengthy process of going live and teaching everybody and showing everybody how to actually use it. By the time it's running and you say you actually have value from it, the world has changed. The requirements has changed, the process has changed, the operations has changed, and you're already in a legacy system. In a composable way, you're actually adopting what's called bottoms up and much more agile. So it's a marriage of lean and agile together, and it's called augmented lean, where we actually start building solutions to specific use cases, not feature functions to requirements, but solutions to use cases in a specific place in operation. So you go to a specific bioreactor, you put in a specific response, a specific solution for example, an electronic batch reactor for that bioreactor as a pilot, and then you learn from there, and then you go to the next bioreactor, and then you go to the next 5 bioreactors, the next 10 bioreactors. So you grow exponentially, and you do that, and this is the important piece of this. You look at this look at the scale at the bottom. We're going from months to weeks. That's the speed by which we can implement these systems. And that is so important, right? So, and this when we and the solution holistically. So when we go to a bioreactor, it's not just capturing the 5 things I need for the batch record. It is a solution for that process, for that bioreactor, including connecting to the automation system, capturing all the data, all the context that you need. So you're instrumenting the whole process. And with that, you're not solving one use case, which is I need the 5 things for the batch record, but I can do process optimization and production optimization and dashboards and everything that you need. So that's the world that we want to live in. Hopefully that was understood. So that was kind of my response. But go ahead, Yasser.
Yeah, that part also does not go away. We don't eliminate the process definition configuration. However, this becomes an iterative process because you are solving problems for different persona. What does that mean for a real life example? You are trying to minimize the CIP process. From a production perspective, the CIP process might be defined as uh, any successful batch runs between two products. So it's a CIP. So if we are changing over between products, it's a CIP. From a compliance perspective, that might mean another thing, like giving the sign off on the first next batch record. So even though those are originated from the same event, it needs to be showing how the context, the data lineage is consumed by different parts of the organization. So does that mean we are going to build different pipelines, different data connections for each of those different persona? No, basically the adaptation is, since we are using unified namespace as an architecture, it's an event-driven architecture. We publish the events there and turn that raw events into information on how the context should be added for humans as well as in the next phases for agents to understand the data source transformation, what does it mean, creating that common ground, common vocabulary of the organization will be as an ongoing journey rather than defining first and changing in every 5 6 months. You will be adapting accordingly. That's how the business is changing. In the old ways, it was 18 months of design going live. Now it needs to be pushing new use cases, new digital products in every weeks, in every 2 weeks, able to create a solution for the problem that you are facing. You might be creating, okay, we have a lymph system that I would like to record those. It was on completely paper-based. Now with an application that we developed on Tulip, now the end user can actually enter all of those and it will be recorded in a compliant way. So we can actually have analysis on if there are any deviations. That part is important for compliance. Also for root cause analysis on the quality perspectives. So starting from one place and going on top of those, that's what we call as additive context. You are actually exponentially growing what you know about the business. And with this kind of adaptation architectural approach, the speed of implementation and solving the problems gets shorter and shorter. That's how you become competitive in the long run.
I just want to add, it's a great perspective in terms of that. I think it's one thing that, again, it's a mind change shift in terms of the data. It used to be that when we looked at these systems as part of this adapting and of the systems together, this notion, I call it data stinginess, like, oh, we have to find out the 5 6 things that we need, the data that we need to collect. In a new world, it doesn't matter. We actually want to collect more data, as much data as possible, and to give it the right context. So once we have put that use case, we're much smarter. So it's a kind of a complete upside down change in how we think. It was from, we need to collect these specific data points, to we have enough data not only to give the compliance that we need, but to really get, and this is the key, the insights into our process, the insights that we need to understand our process. And if we bring the kind of the regulatory aspect to it, one of the main things that our regulators have asked for ever since 2003, ever since the intent of QBD back in 2020 or 2003 was process understanding. The regulators wanted you to show that you have process understanding. And how can you have process understanding if you're doing it on paper or you're capturing a few things in an MES that you have to have an expert go get the data for you, or a historian that has so much data that you can't make any reason out of it. In modern systems, capturing all the data holistically and putting the right context to it very, very fast gives you that process understanding. You can actually go in, a process engineer can go in, interrogate the data set. And I'm saying interrogate. I talk to an agent that says, show me where the deviations are, help me do the root cause analysis. That's the world we want to go in. And in order to do that, you have to have a data set that's holistic, that has the context in it. And it's not just getting, very structured data in an MES and time series data that you have to sit for weeks to put together just to understand what you have.
Moreover, you understand more about the business itself. There are so many inefficiencies that are happening on the shop floor or on operations that you are not even aware of. When you are capturing all of those data, business process reengineering with the guardrails of the regulation is a byproduct of this methodology as well. So there are so many alternative use cases that you are not even aware of. That's what the composable architecture would look like, because you don't have a definitive roadmap that will be step by step, this use case, this use case. There might be several opportunities along the way where you need to adapt and include as a team, so you can also improve the overall productivity of the operation as well.
Well, the discussion is also a little bit covering my next question, Maraniha. Thank you very much for explaining us what is changing, what's the background of it. It's always evaluating itself so rapidly. But let's get a little bit practical. When we talk about GxP-ready in 2026, what does it actually mean? I mean, how does that connect to a data sovereignty, owning your operational intelligence instead of being locked into a vendor?
Yeah, and so this is kind of a continuation of what I said before. So let's start in terms of GxP and be very clear. The regulators have never had anything against new technology, right? They actually want you to use new technology. The regulators across the ocean, both on Europe and Asia and the state, they are really concerned, as we all know, with product safety. With patient safety, product quality, right? And what they're asking us to do is to show us and to prove to them that we are in control of the quality of our product. They're not asking for documents. They're not asking for that you have all your documents checked and you have. They're asking you to show evidence that you are in control. The industry has translated the word evidence to documents, but in the modern world, these documents can be digital. This data, it has to be documented. It doesn't have to be a document, meaning that data is. And when you apply modern digital systems, you actually give that for free. Digital systems have all the data in the world, full audit trail. They come inherently with Alcoa Plus, if they're truly modern digital systems. And you actually don't have to worry about that. Then on top of that, that's what the regulator. On top of that, organizations such as ISPE have initiatives around Pharma 4.0. The ISP Validation 4.0 guide has been issued, and it has everything that you need in order to support modern digital systems. CSA guidance is out there, so risk-based critical thinking is out there, and everybody from the regulatory side and from the industry side has everything ready for you to adopt this properly and to become digital. Most of the problems reside in the current mindset and the current interpretation of regulations within manufacturing companies, and it's hard to change. So it's just a change process that we need to do. And I say usually in the life sciences, there's actually two change processes that are going on at the same time. One, your organization, the pharmaceutical company or biotech company, has to become digital across the board. It's not only manufacturing; they're going digital everywhere using AI. That's change number one. At the same time, the quality organizations of these companies also, or your companies, have to change to adapt to also a digital mindset. So adopting validation 4.0 and the new guidance. So you have two change processes going on at the same time within this organization, and it's messy and it's hard. to do all of that. But there is no constraint from a regulatory / best practice perspective. These guidances are there. They're actually very, very practical and useful. And I can tell you that because I know of companies that have adopted this new way of doing things. And we have plenty of examples in the Tulip ecosystem of pharmaceutical company that have adopted validation 4.0. There's webinars about it, and they're public about it, and they speak about it. So there's a place to learn. So you're not, that's it. In the life sciences, that's the first thing. You're not the first. And there's already a first and a second. So there should be no barrier for us. Like, you show me how it's done.
In terms of the sovereignty part, basically, for a life science or biotech company, you are preserving, doing everything that you can to keep those trade secrets as close to you as possible. That's actually how it should be with the data as well. You should completely own the infrastructure. The nervous system that you are building should be owned completely by you, not by any vendor. You are building all of the context, all of the business logics, where you have an open architecture platform that you selected, that you built on top of those, and you will have the luxury to take and leave wherever you want. That's what we believe the sovereignty means. For patient safety and product quality, for a digital term, it basically turns into smarter decisions, quality data. You need to have end-to-end visibility for the data lineage, how it's been transformed from a raw event to a decision, how it's been consumed by different parts of the organization. You should have end-to-end trail of those data lineages. Moreover, like the business adaptation, like the iteration on the product, your data pipelines, your events, your context will be evolving over time as well. That's why you need to have a version history management, role-based access control on who would be accessing all of those, who would be changing those, and what would be the approval process look like for all of the data infrastructure that you are building. And in order to do that, you need to have a system where it understands what that data means, can transfer that data between those applications with context-aware version. That's where the flexibility in all of those requirements comes in. So it needs to be adaptable to your business changes, as well as have the accountability, as well as transparency, where you have a complete control guardrails that can be put in place without losing the innovation that is required for life science and biotech companies. Because at the end of the day, when you are introducing any product, you need to have iteration, you need to test new ideas. The digital platforms that you are selecting should also allow this for your innovation as well. If always and on a certain period, certain process, it won't yield any innovation fruit. It needs to have that flexibility without losing the control on the compliance or governance perspective. So you need to have both parties and able to blend those requirements into the same platform.
And to add to that, again, there's the best practice. I have the V model here. I think the thing that's changing is two things. First of all, the burden, you can actually rely on your suppliers, the digital system suppliers, to provide a lot of this. You actually don't have to do it yourself. So, you apply the V model, you apply validation 4.0, but as I said before, two things. First of all, digital systems, cloud systems inherently have Alcoa Plus. Like, you actually just need to verify with your vendor to say, go to Maestro, go to Tulip, say, like, show us how you comply with Alcoa Plus. It is so easy for us to show it. It's there. It's not a problem. And then you rely on them to provide to you a validated platform on top of the Alcoa, like, show us how you do provide it. So the burden of proving, or the evidence around the fact that you have control of your data, or control, is already provided to you. It's a low lift. All you have to do is trust. So remove the barriers. It's a cloud. Yes, it's cloud. But as Yasir said, your data is your own data. We can prove that to you, that nobody else can access it. We have security. We can prove that to you. You don't have to do this. It's actually, Tulip is SOC 2 certified. we provide data to over 1,000 different customers in different. They can't look at each other's data. It's kind of it's naive to even think that that's the case. Sometimes I get questions from customers is, oh, but the data's in the cloud and who can access it? I mean, we're not going to be like, we have 1,000 customers. We've thought about it, right? That, it's not something that is just, we have aerospace and defense customers that build, very sensitive stuff.
Rockets.
It's there. It's there. And it stuns me every time that they have, how are we sure the data is secure? Like we're not going to build a big company like Maestro and Tulip and not think about security. And we're not two people in a garage just coming up with software, right? This is, we're serving industries here that have we need to provide the right infrastructure.
Yeah, thank you for underlining that. So if you want to more add things, yes, please welcome.
Basically, this, as Gilad mentioned, these are not afterthoughts for us. We understand the requirements of the business. That's why we serve customers better than most of the other alternative solutions. We understand the pain point and able to solve the challenges with the technology. It's not we are a software company, use it, try to solve your problem. It's the other way around. We have a problem that needs to be solved for this industry, and it needs to be in these guardrails. And we have developed our solutions to solve in the most elegant way that's possible.
Well, thank you for underlining this. So this security perspective is one of the most common questions maybe we have been asked as industrial colleagues. And so regarding the 2 points, Gilad, you have mentioned that one of the main requirements for being ready for GxP in 2026, one of them is artificial intelligence. And so if we would like to also tell that if the artificial intelligence is in the game, then there is also some kind of a security problems or security problem thinking about the customers and so on. But everyone wants to deploy the AI on the shop floor, but regulated manufacturing is a little bit different in terms of the AI. So what has to be true before AI actually works in a GxP environment? So what is the reality check there? So if we will go further, then it's a question that I would like to ask. Yeah.
So I like the way you phrase it, reality check, right? So we started the discussion saying like, we know AI is coming, right? So that's not a discussion anymore, it's coming. And so we want to apply it and we play around with all this AI. But again, if I go back to what I said, the reality is that a lot of our data is still on paper, and it's in people's head and it's manual, right? So AI is great, but AI needs rich data, and it needs rich data with context, right? So I'll give an example, right? So back to the monolithic thinking, I have an MES. Good, an MES I put in, and it took me 1.5 years to put it in. And if I go into the batch record, there may be, there's 50 data points that are important for me for the batch record because that's what the compliance needs. So if I go into that system, I have those 50 data points, and they do have a bit of context. But if you really go into your manufacturing and do just and ask, okay, are those the 50 data points? Is that the only thing I'm manufacturing? If you really look at your operation, you probably have 100,000 data points in your manufacturing. Not all are important, if you will, to compliance, etc. But there's a lot of data, because it's not only data from automation, it's also data about what people do. The automation says, the temperature is so and so, and the pressure is so and so, and the oxygen feed is so and so. But it doesn't point to the fact that the guy who's running the bioreactor went in and tweaked a few things, or maybe didn't close something properly, or he put the materials that he put in. We have to look at a holistic data set, and that's where context comes in. We have to instrument everything that goes into how you run your operation in order for AI to come up with the insights. In general, you say, for AI to run, or for AI to be effective in what it gives you, or the response that it gives you, there's a number of models. I use the 3V model, so it's volume, variety, and velocity. So you need to have a lot of data. You need to have a lot of variety of data, and that means unstructured data as well, videos and pictures and just stuff about, like when you use a Tulip app, it instruments what you do, how long you spend on every step. Did you, what's the variance between the steps in the process, or the time difference? And then velocity. The data needs to change all the time. So because if you give AI a static data set, guess what? It's going to come back with the same answer. Oh yeah, you have this deviation. But if you didn't change the data, oh yeah, you still have this deviation. So it needs to be change in the data. So you need to constantly feed the data that's coming in. That's velocity. And that's an important piece. So first of all, step number one, instrument and digitalize your operation across the board, and don't be stingy about it. Just collect all the data, put as much context as you can around it. And so that's when you can start looking at AI. So that's the one thing. The other thing is understanding, because we're in the GxP world, you can't just tell AI to run unsolicited and do things. We need to be, there's still humans in the loop, and I use this specific term, human in the loop. You're still accountable and responsible for the quality of your product, and that you are in control of your operation. AI will never be accountable. AI will never be responsible. You are the one, humans are the one that release a batch. But we can release the batch much quicker. And that's the point. If we have all this data, then we have the insights, the deep insights into how our operations is running. And when I make a decision to release a batch, it is on the basis of very, very rich data, and with the help of AI, an agent that says, here's all your data, here's all your deviations, this is the interaction between the deviations, the connections, etc., and this is what you've done. And so when I release a batch, and if I need to, and an order comes, did you release a batch with deviations? I can prove, I can show, I can have all the data that I need, and I have trust. So that's the human in the loop. And what we do in terms from an AI, and I'm just going to bring the Tulip perspective of it is, right, we're looking at it from a number of different things. There's first of all, composability, the concept that we tout as, the way to solve your problems digitally, actually is built foundationally on AI. It actually was built with AI as a foundational element of it. So it's ready for that. But we're looking at kind of there's two places where we can use AI. One is in the engineering part. So I need to, let's say, put a new line in, or put some digital content in. So you actually use AI to help build and create content to do the engineering. And then you use AI on all this rich contextual holistic data that you have to help you make decisions operationally. So we look at it from an enterprise and a contextualized AI operational perspective.
For leveraging the existing tools that are not digitally recorded, I always give the same example. How many fingers I'm holding? You don't see it. However, even though we have the camera and I put it, it's 3. Yeah, we captured that event. AI needs those events in a digital format. If it's on the paper, it cannot access it. You need to store as much as possible on the rate that it changes and able to store in a digital format. That's the first step. Second step, Gilad give an example. Let me give you another one. 39. That is one of the records in one of your systems. Is it the patient age or the body temperature? Because those means two different things. One of them is patient has a fever. One of them is an indicator of the age for your sample group. So AI needs to understand what does it mean in terms of how the data is mapped and how it's affecting the overall data lineage. You need to have an auditable data lineage from source to consumption, where you can understand every step of the way, input and output, the transformation. Because in a raw format, AI does not mean anything. We need to enrich those, transform that data for AI to understand with the metadata, with the conditions, what does it mean, where does it collect it, from which reactor, if it's the temperature. It doesn't even stand on the temperatures. Okay, it's a Celsius, 39 Celsius. Body temperature, that means fever. For a clean room, it's out of scope, out of spec. So you cannot have 39 degrees in the production. You can only operate in between 22 plus 2 minus 2. Those are really simple but really important details that you need to collect during giving insights for the AI. You need to have enrichment as much as possible, give those contexts along the way, since from collection, like acquisition to collection, to make context and gaining insights from those. At the end of the day, you will be dealing really large volumes of data, and you need to have different variety of those data as well. You cannot just optimize the process with the material impurity that you are measuring from the LIMS system. It doesn't always come with the temperature that your building management system measures. You need to enrich those with different data sources, and when you are bringing those together, AI needs to understand how the transformation actually occurred, under which condition, for which process as well. So end-to-end audit trail, version management, where you have composability, because at the end of the day, there will be so many use cases that you are not even aware will come out of this architecture as well. You'll be solving the unseen problems with AI. That's what everyone wants. You would like to have an autonomous decision where humans in the loop and operating as much as non-variable activities for the insights analysis through the AI, where humans will be the owner of the process, make those informed decisions, and AI will be suggesting based on those insights. The room temperature, humidity was inspect. The method has been applied according to this recipe, and these are the measurement details. This is the machine calibration that we last went through. All of those required for electronic batch release. So it will say, okay, that's a clean batch that can be shipped. All of those needs composability, flexibility, as well as auditability at the end of the day. And AI, especially Gen AI, with reasoning models, with understanding different data sources, have so much potential that can be applied on the shop floor. And application of AI does not violate GxP, by the way. As Gilad mentioned, these regulators would like you to adapt this technology. However, it needs to be transparent and accountable. It's never, I will delegate all of the tasks to AI. You will be getting help from AI to minimize non-value-added activities that can be automated, and you will be in the human in the loop that is accountable process owner, validating all of those that AI actually summarized for you, to own the process, to own the product. That's what the future of the life sciences will look like with the AI.
Yeah, I just want to add, and maybe a simple example. I use this a lot. So, and it's not really. So, when we take pictures, right, I use, for example, the Google Photos. When we take pictures on the phone, and you ring to the cloud, every time you take a picture, there's metadata added to that picture, to the photo, or even a video. We have a GPS location, we have a timestamp, we know who, from which phone, who did it, who took the picture. So if I go back into Google Photos and I look at that specific photo, I can actually see who took it, the GPS location, all that other stuff. In addition, as the photo gets put in the cloud, they does some processing on it. It actually recognizes faces and says, oh, this is a picture of Gilad. And that's added to the metadata. And there's also a dog in the picture. Oh, and there's some flowers and some trees, etc. And so now when I go back into this data set, into this photo, I can see, oh, look, I want to see all the pictures who have trees in them. Well, it's already tagged with that trees, and I can see all the pictures of the trees. And for a human to understand that, it's very simple. I don't need to go into this intricate SQL deep relational databases. I pick my photo, I look at the photo, in my eyes, I can see the photo, but I can also see the tags that were adapted to it. So if I need to explain that to an auditor, I can. Oh, look, this is a picture that has a tree in it. It's tagged. It's not hard to us explain. It's not hard for us to interpret. So the new way of capturing data with context, and this is what essentially means data with context, is democratized, meaning that it's very easy to explain. It's very easy for people to interpret, and also hence very easy to explain to an auditor, or auditability goes up. And that is essentially what AI uses. That's what AI uses. So I'm demystifying this whole AI thing. It's actually much easier for humans to understand data that is also easier for AI to this. Data that is buried in monolithic system with deep SQL relationships and abstractions is harder for humans to understand. It's also harder for AI to understand. It needs to be pre-processed. It's very hard. So, and from a GxP perspective, again, we as vendors provide full Alcoa Plus on all this data plus its context. And we have all the GxP processes in place, and we have a QMS and everything. So when you look at, and I'm going to go from a photo to a bioreactor deviation that's captured, and I pick up that deviation from our data set with all the metadata that it has, who did it, when it was, all the great stuff, I can explain it. And it's already, GxP ready. So, or it's compliant from that perspective. So again, demystifying all of this.
Thank you very much. So while looking at your time, there's 50 minutes left, and there were some questions, and I'm a little bit speeding up. But this question is important for me because it's also describing how do Tulip and MaestroHub work together to create the architecture that balances operational agility, governed interoperability, scalability, compliance readiness, and the operational trust. And what does that actually look like?
Yeah, so I think it's a good segue. I mean, we went from GxP, we actually went back into the architecture. So I'm reiterating what I said. First, you have to look at it holistically. It's not we not look at it from a functionality perspective, but have an architecture that allows us to stream all this instrumented data and allowing it to provide context. This is our perspective. So this slide is our perspective. So kind of Tulip in the center, but we also understand that Tulip is not the only source of data. There is data sources. To get the real deep insights that we need into manufacturing, it's not one system. We have kind of the typical layers. From the shop floor, you need to get data from your automation, the things that are driven automation, so your DCSs and your PLCs and all of that great stuff, historians as well. We also have to get data from the people on the shop floor and what they're doing. That's the human instrumented piece of data. Data from systems, not only maybe an MES, but there is a environmental the environmental system, even external. Is it hot or cold? What are the what's the temperature outside the material system? And we need to bring an ERP as well with all that data, and we need to bring all that data to a place where AI and us can query and interrogate and consume this information in a way that we can operate better, and better as meant operational excellence at the same time, product quality, patient safety, and answer all these questions from one set. So it's about data ops. It's about streaming this data in and providing the context that I talked about, my examples with the Google Photos, into a place that we can consume it.
From a joint perspective, we also have a slide at the end as well. But as Gilad put through, neither Tulip nor MaestroHub is trying to become the center of your universe. We are the enablers that the architecture that you are building, we are actually empowering you in two different areas. Like for human-centric productivity, app building, agentic AI orchestration, Tulip covers all of those areas, where we will be mostly providing data connectivity, contextualization, pipeline orchestration, where the access control with advanced role-based access on the entity level ownership. So the data pipelines plumbing that you are building is completely owned by you. Basically, the sovereignty comes in as a byproduct of this architecture. You completely own all of the data that you have, and it's really flexible architecture. You can connect from your PLCs to Tulip, or you can enrich that data while you are modeling that for certain applications with MaestroHub and pushing all of those to Tulip. It's not one of those either. It's not either one or the other. It's actually more powerful when you combine two of the solutions together. And to serve both humans as well as agents, you need to have end-to-end governance with a context engine where you have the audit trail of your data generation to consumption and how it's been versioned, how it's been manipulated. All of those transfers, all of those transformations needs to be centrally governed with a platform. That's where MaestroHub covers for all of the access control. And from sensor to cloud, we cover all of data sources with bidirectional communications, because at the end of the day, it's not just for data collection, You need to have make better informed decision for those processes. And with human-in-the-loop verifications, you would like to have closed-loop pipelines as much as possible to automate that process. It needs to be humans are the supervisors and AI, the systems are actually doing the hard work for you. Without manual data entry, why don't we just capture that data from different data sources, enrich that data with metadata, and transfer it to other applications with the unified namespace architecture. So you can have the current state of the business as well as the structure of the business can be accessible in a broker, edge-driven, open architecture perspective.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's a great. This is a great perspective on the kind of the two systems with kind of the human in the loop perspective. So thanks, Yasser.
And, and thank you for that. And so that was my last question, but we have got also a Q&A session. I have seen two different questions on the chat box, and would like to read it to you. However you want, you can also reply. The first question is: the manufacturers understand today they need modernization, but a few can afford large-scale disruptions. And so, what are some practical first steps that the organization can take? It's a little bit general question, but it covered a
Yeah.
little bit in our conversation, but maybe it's good for a summary.
So the good news is, yes, this is, I agree. And this is a fundamental shift in thinking, fundamental shift in how we operate, and we have to take that. But remember, I said bottoms up. One of the key things that digital transformation and these new digital tools give you is the ability to actually start small and build. That's a low risk approach at doing this. So, and it's inherent. In fact, the way I put it is, if you don't if a vendor comes to you and says, like, I have the next greatest thing for you, there's a few key questions that you can ask, right? And I'll give you two. One, how fast can I solve a specific problem on my shop floor? And the answer needs to be days and weeks, meaning that you don't need to do all or nothing. You can actually go to a very localized little place and solve one problem and then go and build from there. That's number one. The other question is, who can do it? And the answer has to be you, the people who understand the process. It's democratized, meaning that, again, you don't need to rely on other sources and explain to them what you do so they understand and then they do something. They build a system for you. You actually do it yourself through a democratized mean, and that means that you can solve your own problem and you can solve them very quickly and very localized, slow, with kind of a low risk approach. So that with that, there is no constraint at all for any organization to not start doing this right now.
I
Yes,
would
sir.
be a
Anything to
little
add
bit,
on?
in terms of where to start, how to prioritize, basically the leadership team needs to take a few days together to say, okay, so we need to transform. AI is here, it's not going anywhere. So in our digital transformation, why are we transforming? What would be the reasons? Like it needs to fall into three categories: productivity, revenue, or risk, transparency, or resilience, adaptation. Other than that, if it falls into other categories, it doesn't work. It needs to fall into one of these categories because for a regulated industry like life science, biotech, you also basically need to have all of those three, by the way. And if your strategy is aligned with all of those, that would be perfect. Then you will identify the minimum technical requirements. What will it look like for a democratized sovereign data architecture for us? How can we actually own the data? That is one of the questions that you need to answer as well. And it doesn't need to be like 5 pages, 10 pages long. Like it needs to be really minimum to say, how are you going to solve this? How am I going to access that data? Who owns the data? Who is building? You can ask all of those to vendors. And basically, like Gilad said, if the first use cases does not deliver value and basically creates the foundation to solve iteratively the other solutions on top of the platform that you select, it's never going to stick. At the end of the day, nobody taught us how to use smartphones. If the adaptation is the key for digital transformation, You don't need someone else to build the solution for you. Your own people should need to take the platform, create the things that you need, able to solve the challenges because they are the ones who are closest to the problem and they know how to solve the problem as well. You just need to put the guardrails without losing the regulatory requirements, where you have completely centrally governed, where you also enable people, empower end users, frontline to solve their own challenges. That is what the future of the business would look like with the autonomy that you bring to the people as well as for the AI agents. However, without the guardrails, you cannot execute this. It's like giving a knife to a kid. Don't cut yourself. It doesn't work like that. You need to put guardrails to prevent those kind of problems. That's why for especially regulated industry like life science, you need to have traceability, audit trail, like role-based access control. Without this, you cannot give any solution to end user to say, okay, go wild. It doesn't work like that. But it always starts with a small use case, start with what you already have. Business impact, available data source is to implement. After that point, it will go.
And you had covered also the second question as well. So we have got a little bit time to recap, but I'm going to ask the second question, but you already answered it. So if a manufacturer want to improve the governance of the data sovereignty over the next 12 months, where would you recommend they start? But the information that you have given, Gilad and Yasir, it's also covering the questions as well. Because as far as I know, according to my experience, that if you would like to start from somewhere, you need to first define your problem, where I am lacking of the information or something like this, and then you can put everything inside it. And that's already covered. Would you like to add something
Yeah,
on this
yeah.
question as well? Yeah.
When we say the data, most of the data is not captured in life science, it doesn't mean none of the data is captured. There are a lot of available data sources that you can start from. However, the context, the traceability, accountability that you are looking for requires so much more. Basically, if you are not measuring your operator movements or how many people in the clean room or the deviations on the BMS, then it doesn't work like that. You need to store those for evidence. However, there are already available data sources. In order to have a life science, you need to have conditioned rooms. You need to have certain electricity consumption because your leadership team is concerned about utilities cost. Make an analysis of those. If our reactors are not working and if we are spending too much on the utilities, for Europe, the utilities costs, energy costs are really high right now. You can save on those. You can have optimal working conditions, develop an application where notify the related technician to get into standby mode without compromising the regulation. That's a really ideal use case that you can start and make money from.
Thank you,
Or
Yasir.
just
Yeah. Please,
yeah.
Gilad.
Yeah, so I mean, look, this is GXP, and even if it's not, you need governance, right? So this is none of this is going to be done without some form of framework that defines how you govern how you capture data, you put context. But again, I would emphasize you need governance. We all know there's frameworks for that. But even governance, you start bottoms up. It doesn't mean that you need to define everything and everywhere and how you do it. You solve one problem, you capture one data set, and then you look at what governance needs to be put around that. And then you do the next and the next, and you kind of build your governance as you go. So again, but governance is important, but again, that is also going to be done bottoms up.
And thank you very much for this precious conversation, by the way. We are end of our conversation. So for 30 seconds, may I get your last opinions for the folk that are watching us?
Yeah, so I mean, I mentioned this multiple times through this. There is no barrier to you not starting to digitize and transform using AI today. The two rules are who can do it and how fast you can do it. Just ask those questions, and let's go.
It's never technological barriers, it's always cultural adaptation. And it's not about taking risks anymore, it's a necessity that you need to take. Just believe that there are so many good partners that you can rely upon on this journey, where their main goal is to support you and become successful. We are here to help. Everything that you need is already taught for you. There are already available applications. And one use case, for example, that we delivered with Tulip, as Gilad mentioned, it shouldn't be in weeks, months. It should be in the same day, within same hour. That's the speed that we are talking about. Just start and it will go down the hill really easily.
Thank you, thank you. And also, that's all, folks, by the way. And also, I would like to thank you, Gilad, a little bit more because it's very early in the morning. You also participated in our webinar. Thank you for your effort and thank you for your time. As well as Yasir is today on the business trip, and also he has got time for us for directing this webinar as well. And for the people who are watching us, that I would like to say, okay, we are going to send you the recording of this webinar, the slides, and the links of Tulip and MaestroHub, and also we will include the contact information if you will like to have more questions or you would like to have more conversation about the data sovereignty and the GxP-ready issues, and you can contact both Tulip or MaestroHub or both of us. And also thank you very much for your time. Again, thank you very much, Gilad. Thank you very much, Yasir, and hope everyone enjoys that. Thank you, folks. That's all, folks. Okay, bye.
Thank you. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
See you.
Bye.
Bye bye.